Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. This is a celebration of spooky soundtracks and the horror films that dawn them. Obviously, this episode is inspired by October and Halloween. Even though many of us watch horror movies year round, it's fun to shine a light on a specific subject from time to time, especially in the fall. In doing this, I listened to a lot of great music, and one of the songs I selected has this lyric: I would like to wear my life inside out. I feel like that's really fitting for this time of year when it's more acceptable for people to wear their weird insides on the outside of their themselves and their homes, I guess. I like that. So many of us look how we look year round, but for some people that have office jobs, etc., or maybe that's not okay, except during the holiday. And anytime people can be more of their self on the outside or inside, I think that's pretty great. So I hope you appreciate this episode. I hope you watch these movies. I hope you buy these soundtracks. And I hope you support these artists and composers. So let's get to it. Our guest is Heather Drain, and this is a spooky soundtrack mixtape on VHS. Greetings and salutations. This is VHS, and I'm your host, Dirk Marshall. Welcome to another episode of the intersection of music and horror. And for this special episode, we welcome back writer Heather Drain. Welcome back.
Hello, thank you so much for having me back, and especially what I feel like is the greatest season of all the seasons, the greatest month of all the months.
Yes, completely agreed. Now, every time I introduce you, I'm like, do I say Mondo Heather because I think of your website, but I also call you Heather Drain. So is there a preference there?
I mean, either is great. I mean, Heather Drain is the name I formally write
Yes.
under. It's also my actual name, so that's cool. But of course, Mondo Heather is. I don't like to say nickname because I feel like if you give yourself a nickname, it's kind of lame. I guess my moniker of sorts. So no,
hmm
either one's great, but you can call me Heather. We
Okay,
know we're
yes.
friends at this
Okay.
point.
Of course, of course. I just always I'm like, hold on a second. I want to direct people in the right place. As long as all arrows point from Heather Drain and Mondo Heather to the same place.
Absolutely. Yes.
Fantastic.
Come to me.
Yes. Now, listeners will remember our previous episodes, music moments that made a movie, and of course, our epic Doll Man conversation where we covered all
Yes.
things doll. Not, yeah, Doll Man, right?
Devil Doll.
Devil Doll. I'm like, that's
Doll.
not
We
right.
should do Doll Man though, because I love Tim Thomerson so
Yes.
much. He is epic.
I was like, hold on, we didn't discuss Doll Man versus demonic toys. That would have come up.
That's coming later.
Yeah. And Devil Doll was a demonic toy, so it just should have folded in together. But Heather, what's new with you?
Oh my goodness. Well, something I'm super excited about that is, I believe, is now open to the general public. I got to be on Synapse's latest Blu-ray release of Mike Mendez's debut feature film, which is this film Killers. Mike Mendez is probably
Oh.
best known for doing films like The Convent, and he recently did Satanic Hispanics. That's, I think, is his
Right.
newest one. Big Ass Spider, which is such a
hmm
fun movie. Killers was his first film, and it is such a trip. It's a film I love so much. It's definitely a very underrated cult film, and I'm so glad they're giving it the beautiful synapse treatment. And so I have an essay on that. And of course, Umbrella Entertainment in Australia have released this amazing set of Caligula, the Ultimate Cut. And
Yes.
it is a set of complete decadence, which is natural because we're talking
Hmm.
Caligula.
Hmm.
And I have a commentary track on that. I hope it's good. I did my best. I always feel like mileage is going to vary. There's always that fear. I feel like, especially because audio commentaries, you're really like asking somebody for a lot of their time period.
Yes.
But it was a lot of fun, a lot of intensive research. As we all know, or I imagine a lot of people listening are familiar with Caligula,
Hmm.
the Bob Guccione production. Kind of, I mean, it's a film without a director in a lot of ways because Tinto Brass got kicked off the original.
Hmm.
We're not really kicked off, he got cut basically by Guccione. And so the Ultimate Cut is basically this new sort of assemblage of trying to put together a different edit without so much the Guccione kind of inserted
Hmm.
footage. And you get to see a lot of stuff that was not in any of the previous cuts, which is super cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, including you're getting to see a lot more of Helen Mirren, who's of course an always welcome sight, such a
Yeah.
great actress, and John Steiner, which for all of his horror films, I think we should all have a love in our heart. Of course,
Hmm.
he's in so many movies. He's in a ton of Tinto's films,
Yeah.
including Salon Kitty, which is so incredible. Tenebrae, gosh, so many others. I'm sure if we could do like a mini series
Yeah.
podcast just on the works of John Steiner,
That's true.
but wonderful, and I feel like very underrated
Mhm.
English actor. He's fantastic.
Yeah. I also saw your name attached to The Hitcher.
Yes, I'm so excited. Yeah, Second Sight, who have been working their tails off on this restoration and this release for I
Yeah.
think like 2 years. I wrote that essay, I know, like 2 or 3 years ago. Like it's been
Wow.
in the process. They have worked so hard. It's gorgeous. Like even I mean, in The Hitcher, I think is one of the best horror
Hmm.
movies ever.
Yeah.
Like just period, not just from the 80s. Rucker Hauer,
Oh, yeah.
who is legit one of my favorite actors ever, is just one of the most terrifying, I think, villains.
Yeah.
Certainly in modern cinema. He's so perfect. C. Thomas Howell, of course, is phenomenal. And I feel like not enough people don't really give him credit.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
And they should. He's so good. Christian for Jason Lee. And yeah, it's a beautiful set. I have an essay, and I get to be next to some amazing writers as well, including Alexandra Hill Nichols, who's phenomenal in everything. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about that. Anytime I can write about Rucker Hauer is a is a very happy moment for me.
Yeah. Agreed. I have a real second sight problem right now because they did Gunjam Haunted Asylum and a beautiful set, and I love that movie. And so I got that. And then they did Crimes of the Future. And I was like, well, I mean, it's Cronenberg. I kind of
Right.
should have the prettiest version of that. And then they also did Inside, the French horror
Ooh,
movie.
look at that sexy looking set.
Oh my
Holy
gosh.
cow. They really do go like the extra mile.
And I only saw this once with my wife, who was punching me in the forearm the whole time, being like, "Fuck you, Dirk Marshall," because it just really worked for us. It was so intense that I was nervous about bringing it into the house, but because it's such a pretty set, I feel okay about it. But I'm gonna keep my eye on it as it did terrify me. Yeah, but I saw your name on the hit. I was like scanning all the things, because I'm like, it's a lot of money for these releases, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And my friend Ryan over at the New World Pictures podcast, he got it. So then I was having fear of missing out because I'm like, this thing will sell out and it's beautiful with the booklet and everything. And then I saw your name on it and I was like, well, I gotta get it because I've started collecting them. I have right here the Flesh
Mhm.
trilogy that you did the
Oh,
commentary for all three.
that's still my favorite.
It's great. I learned a lot, and you make it very informative and entertaining. I know I've given you props before when we talked, but if anyone is interested in the Flesh trilogy, definitely pick up that release because it is fantastic to see these films get the just desserts that they deserve.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about I will say that about the second Sight Hitcher set too is you get the full script by Eric Red,
Yeah.
which I love that. And that's such a cool, like, I feel like you don't always see that enough as a
Hmm.
supplement. And I mean, and it's cost prohibitive. I mean, there's reasons, there's
Sure.
very
Yeah.
logistically good reasons why, but it's cool. It's certainly cool to have that. And so I'm so glad. Thank you for getting it. I definitely can understand. I mean, there's plenty of sets I cannot afford.
Yes.
I do not physically have the resources to get everything I want to get. And we live in sort of this era where there's so many great boutique labels that are just
Hmm.
doing, the Dark Lord's work, which is
Yes.
beautiful. But some of it absolutely gets very cost prohibitive, especially when you start talking like some of the box sets. Like
Yeah.
it's, and then FOMO. We could do a whole
Yes.
podcast on
Oh
FOMO.
my
FOMO is
gosh.
such a thing with film and music. And I know you and I both are like total film and music
Yep.
people.
Sucker
It's
for it. If
ridiculous.
you put
Oh my
limited
God.
edition or you number something, I can't. It's the worst. I'm a sucker every time. And I forget every time that maybe there's not, 5,000 of me on the earth because I just think like everyone's going to want this. And then 2 years later, there's still 1,000 left in the store or whatever. And I'm like, okay, maybe not everybody needed the
Oh,
movie with a tea strainer, but I had to have it. So, that's
right. But the one time you don't do it is the one time it sells out.
yeah, and then it's on eBay for like
Um,
$400, and you're like, well, now I'll never get it. I'll never be able to have that in my life until it's something that I spend too much money on, and then it's put out by some other label for like $17, and I'm like,
oh my God. I've legit and I get pig-headed where I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm not
yeah,
getting this. I have the DVD.
yeah.
I'm
I
not
have
gonna-
I have the reflecting skin on VHS. I have it on Blu-ray, and they're putting out Vinegar Syndrome's now releasing it with a slipcase. I think basically the same supplements, and I'm like, no. Am I? I mean, I have everything you can have of reflecting skin, and then I'm like, well, I think we all know how this is gonna go. It's gonna be an extra glass of red wine one night, and suddenly it's gonna show up at the house a month later. But I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try my hardest not to pick it up. For this special episode, we've each selected 10 songs from soundtracks that put us in the spooky mood. How was this process for you?
I love putting together a music mix anyways.
Yeah.
Halloween, I have like at least three or four different like Halloweeny playlists I have curated on my Spotify alone. I'm not even talking about like the physical mixes I've made in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I love though that you have like, okay, but it has to be from a soundtrack.
Yes.
And I loved that because that put a little limit on me because I can get very unwieldy very quickly
Yeah.
when it comes to music for the spookiest season.
Mm-hmm.
So this was fun. I tried to find a few things that were deeper cuts. Some of these are going to be very obvious because you can't
Sure.
escape it. I mean, I say obvious for our people, which
Yeah.
means I'm sure anybody else would be like, "What?" But no, it was fun, and especially thinking in terms of like, because there's plenty of great music in horror movies that I don't necessarily, for me, pair well with the season.
Yes. Agreed.
And so that was kind of a cool stipulation too. Like some things, like I love the Subspecies soundtrack, but for me, that soundtrack hits the best in winter for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
as does Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like
Yeah.
that's another incredible soundtrack.
Yep.
But again, that one just feels like very snowy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was fun. But how about you?
It was tricky. Like there were songs that definitely jumped out at first, and then as we were talking pre-record, there was stuff where I had to be like, well, obviously I love this song, but is this something I would put on for like a spooky mix? Like I was imagining if I was having a party and this would be playing in the background kind of thing, like and there's also scores. I was like, oh, we're talking soundtrack, but does that include score? And I was like, I personally wouldn't put a score on if I was having people over. So I was like, no, I'm not going to let myself do scores. But then I also, like you said, I've made so many Halloween mixes over the years that there's songs that sample like Suspiria or Phantasm and things. And I love those songs. I'd love to put them on mixes, but they're not on soundtracks. And so I was like, okay, I'm keeping myself to soundtracks and that'll be it. But there was just so many. I started unearthing so many things that like I'm sure you and I could do like a 6 disc set if it was back in the days of compact discs. That would be, the ultimate for spooky season. But I did have one thing. So we did discuss movie moments that music made really awesome in a previous episode, and I did not have a chance to go back and re-listen. But there was one thing, and I tried not to have like repeats. But there was one thing that I think we have to discuss. So without revealing what that is, I'll just say the actress to you, and I think you'll know what I'm alluding to, and then you let me know if it's
Mhm.
one of your 10 or not.
Okay.
Linnea Quigley.
No, but no, but yes.
Okay.
How's that? She is connected to one of my picks, but I don't think it's the pick you're thinking of.
Okay, because I would like to, if it's okay with you, not one of our
Hmm.
10 each, but I think it's only fitting to kick off this episode with a little taste of that song that we're alluding to, just to kind of set the tone.
Yes.
Okay, great. So that song, of course, is by 45 Grave. The song is Party Time. It's from their debut album, Sleep in Safety. It was also a B side to School's Out and then remixed again for the zombie version. It's from Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, one of the greatest soundtracks, I think,
Yes,
just period.
period.
Like my copy, I don't know how yours looks. My copy of the soundtrack looks war torn.
Yes.
It has I have played it so much over the years. I need to I honestly I say replace it. I'll keep it. I'm always going to keep my battered ass versions of
Yes.
anything because I'm a hoarder, but
Same,
but
same.
but oh my god, iconic. Every single song on that soundtrack is iconic, but that one, I mean, 45 Grave are
Yeah.
legends, death
Yes.
rock, punk rock legends. And it's also cool that we have two versions of that song because they're I can't imagine somebody who's used to the zombie version goes back, they're like, I'm gonna get this 45 Grave album, and then they're listening to the original version, and it's like about this little girl who's raped and murdered,
Yes.
and they're probably like, what the fuck?
Why did I? What is this?
It's but I love that. And have you seen the original music video? Like for
Oh,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
so creepy. And I think that's Graham Whiffler, who's such a cool director. He did a lot of stuff for the Residents.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote Sunny Boy
Oh,
and
whoa.
Dr. Giggles. Yeah, Graham is fascinating. He's a fascinating, such a cool artist. He also did the short film for Ronaldo and the Lows, Swinging Songs for Larvae. I
Whoa,
hope I'm getting that
okay.
title right. But really just a really evocative um guy that just can revel in the weirdness and in a way that is so him.
Mm-hmm.
And he did a lot of music video work. He did one for Sparks for Cool Places,
Mm-hmm.
which is a very like upbeat video, but there's like a little Easter egg. You see a photo of a girl, and it's the woman that died in that horrible car crash with like that Ted Kennedy was behind the wheel at.
Oh, jeez.
Like Graham is he will always put something really dark and messed up in his work, which of course I endorse.
Yes.
So
I love that. Okay, so we've set the tone. Why don't you tell us your first pick for our soundtrack setting the tone for spooky season?
excellent. Thank you. I will start off by saying my list is not in like order of like my favorite, like 10 to 1 as far as like
Yes, me
one's my
neither.
favorite.
Yeah.
This is all, and honestly, when we get done recording, I'm probably gonna like kick myself because there's probably gonna be 20 other things. I'm like, ah shit, that should have been on my list. But
Yes.
my first pick is the intro and main title theme to Phantasm by Fred Myro and Malcolm Seagrave.
Yes. I'll lose listeners talking about how much I love Phantasm yet again, but I love that you picked this.
My God, Phantasm in general for me is that's one of my favorite movies ever, just
Same.
period. I think
Yeah.
it's a perfect movie. I can never get tired of it. But such a huge linchpin to, I think, because that film has an atmosphere unlike any other film too. Like it's truly such a unique horror film.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, think about it. It was made like what, 79?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's there's still nothing like it. I mean, and there's so many films that we definitely could equally call iconic from the 70s and early 80s that inspired so many like kind of like films that some you could
Mm-hmm.
even say are ripoffs. And even though we love some of those ripoffs too,
Absolutely.
but Phantasm really is like its own little beastie
Yes.
or big beastie. And part of it is that you think of that movie and you think of that great title music and it's so
Mm-hmm.
eerie. And to me, it makes me feel like that, one of when the nighttime and fall starts getting really chilly.
Yeah.
It's like a crisp fall air, and you're at night, and you're kind of enchanted. You're like, "Ooh, it's the enchantment season," but you're also a little like, "Ooh, it's a little unsettling." And
Mm-hmm.
I just love it. And I found out a little bit about because I honestly was like, I don't really know much about either composer though, other than the Phantasm soundtrack. And I
Yeah.
found out that Fred Myro's father was also a composer who worked in Hollywood, and his grandfather once managed Duke Ellington. So he kind of went into this having a musical pedigree already. Malcolm Seagrave, I think this is so badass. Not only had a background both in classical and chamber music, which I love.
Yeah.
I think we need to bring back chamber music. That
Yes.
just makes me, I kind of want to like enter an era like I'm going to call my Dr. Phibes era,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to live in a Dr. Phibes house that has chamber music all the time. I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
And he had like a pretty seems like successful academic career that he abandoned and left to go write an opera. I think that's badass.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm like, where's that documentary? Like, if anybody's listening, if you want to write a biography, because I don't think Malcolm's with us anymore, I want to know more about that guy. I mean, Fred's fascinating too, but I mean, chamber music and just like quitting, I don't know if he had tenure or anything, but quitting this like presumably cush job to go write an opera, that's epic.
Yeah. It's really interesting when you're digging around and finding about people's lives who you appreciate through one avenue, like a musician, and then you're like, and I'll get to one where I was like, wait, they also do this, like, or they also can do that. It's like I tend to put people in one box that they're talented and that's their only talent, and then I find out like, oh no, no, they're great at a variety of things, and how those things go together is a whole nother story itself.
Oh my, I love that. That's always like the one of the sweet spots of researching is sometimes
Mm-hmm.
you just get on these little rabbit trails.
Yeah.
But that's my first pick. What is yours? I'm so curious.
Okay, so we already got 45 Grave on the mix, and pre-record we talked about Angela's Dance and Night of the Demons with Bauhaus's
Yes.
Stigmata Martyr. So that's not going on the list, people. We both agreed that it's not something we put on our mix, despite loving the band and the scene in the
Oh,
movie. So I'm going to pivot, and I am going to include something that came from our last conversation, but that's
mhm.
because I think right after your selection, this is that melange of a feeling that I love to chase in mixes. And that's something that's, you've set the tone so perfectly. And then now we need something that's a little fun, a little, I wouldn't say sleazy, but grimy or gritty. And that's going to be the Cramps Fever from Near Dark.
No one knows how much I love you. No one knows how much I care. When you put your arms around me, I get a fever that's hard to bear. You give me fever. When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever!
Oh my God. Yes. Yes.
You mentioned it. It's
Yes.
on Songs
Oh,
the Lord Taught Us from 1980. It's one of our favorite scenes. We've already talked about it so much, but it's just, I mean, there are those of us that saw the movie and were like, oh, favorite band, favorite movie moment? I mean, it's unforgettable.
oh my God. That is such a perfect pick. Holy shit. I know that scene. And especially because like the song before that, and we probably talked about it too. You go from Naughty Naughty by John Parr,
Yeah.
which is kind of fun, but it's such a different vibe,
Hmm.
obviously. And then all of a sudden, things are going to we're really going to go dark, no pun intended, when the Cramps come on. And it's like such a weirdly sexy but
Yes.
sinister song and
Yeah.
cover.
Yeah.
Because the Cramps, like Lux adds kind of that great sexy creepy, and then of course you get Ivy, because the original's great, but the original's just kind of pure sex on a
Hmm.
stick,
Hmm.
where the Cramps just put their little eerie mix on it. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that, and I cannot believe that's not on my list, but
Well,
that's perfect.
because you did cover it last time we talked, but it's
Out.
one of those that I was like, much like the 45 Grave Return of the Living Dead situation, it's like, I know it's might be obvious maybe to some people, but it's got to be a part of the conversation because otherwise anybody that is going to be aware of these picks is going to be like, why wasn't this? I mean, that is a huge moment. So I just thought, you know what? I'll forego a pick. I'll throw this in there. It's a part of our mix now. Heather, what is your second pick?
Oh, well, for some reason, there's something about, especially once you get mid-fall, that I just think kind of pairs well with like 80s like metal and hard
Yes.
rock. Like
Oh
it
my
just
gosh. I have some on my
right.
list. I don't know what you're going to pick. Okay.
Oh my God. Oh, now I'm so curious. And I have a few on my list too. But the
Okay, perfect.
first one, and I love this song so much. I love this movie. This is a movie I didn't actually see until last year. And I'm so glad I did because
Ooh.
it's phenomenal. And it's I'm Back by the band Sorcery from Rocktober Blood.
Yes.
I originally was going to do Rainbow Eyes, which is another great song for that film, but Rainbow Eyes isn't spooky. It's just like a great, oh my God,
Yeah. Yeah,
yes, yes, the
I
DVD.
have
Oh
the
my God.
DVD. Oh man. Great pick. I love this. I have Zombie Nightmare, Rock and Roll Nightmare, Rocktober Blood, Black Roses. These are all things that all fit together for me, and I love to watch them all side by side, basically. But this was one that, I mean, just the barn that they're in for much of the film. I was just like, what is going on? The masks, but the music really is like perfect for this time of year. So I love that you've included it.
Oh my God, yes. And I feel like such a noob because I didn't realize until putting together my list and realizing Sorcery are also in Brian Trenchard Smith's movie Stunt Rock.
Oh, whoa.
Right?
Okay, I have
Right?
to rewatch that now. That is
Same. I know, which I'm like, I'm always happy to watch more Brian Trenchard Smith anyway. So
yes,
that's a joy. And it'd be fun to watch that and then rewatch because I was gonna rewatch October Blood anyways,
same.
because
Yeah,
it's like so, but yes, I'm so glad you love that movie too. I think more people should talk about October Blood because it's so much fun.
yeah, I agree. It's very fun. It's one of the ones when my wife, because I was doing 31 and 31 kind of solo, like most of my life watching movies by myself. And my wife was like, you know what? I'll do it with you. And I was like, what, really? Oh, okay. And
Mm.
then there was like some stakes because some things I'm like, you're not going to be into this. I don't want to make anyone sit through anything they're not interested in sitting through. But then, with how sort of low budget the film is, I was like, I don't know if she's going to be into it. But she also grew up in the VHS era, so she's not super harsh on picture quality or whatnot. Like we had Superstition before it came out on Blu-ray, and this VHS rip, we had to sit a foot from the TV to even hear the sound, but like, we were still down for it. And October Blood just played so well, as did Rock and Roll Nightmare. And I just love, like, it says a killer show with all the elements, diehard fans, screaming guitars, blood red lights, and murder. Oh, those
Yes.
are all the elements. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
There's no lie.
Blood red
Oh my
lights.
God. And I almost picked something from Rock and Roll Nightmare. That was one because I love that movie. And
Yeah.
of course, the only Thor I acknowledge is John Michael Thor. I will not
Yes.
have anytime somebody's like, oh, the new Thor movie, I'm like, is John Michael Thor in it? And they're like, who's that? And I'm like, get out of my face.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
so yes, but I was like, ultimately, I'm like, that's the soundtrack. Rock and Roll Nightmare pairs well with the summer. I think that's music would pair well with the summer.
Yeah, I agree. So just as I write it down here, which title did you ultimately go with?
I'm Back by Sorcery. Yeah. Because that one has got a good creep. Got a good
Yeah.
creep factor to it.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, this is great. I'm loving every second of this. So my next pick is interesting because it's a new film with an overall feel that was very much my thing. I love when I see something that's brand new and I'm not thinking like, oh, they're taking 80s aesthetic and applying it to this or there, because there's a lot
Mhm.
of ways people can be like, I'm gonna manufacture a feeling instantly. And when a director comes up with something where I'm like, what is this overall feel? And then it kind of sets into my bones, and then the movie ends, and I'm like, I think that's a new favorite for me. But one of my favorite things about it was it includes a song that I wouldn't think anyone would ever find because it's not
Mhm.
a band I hear people talk about. So I love the movie Lose or Luz, depending on who you're talking to. And when I saw Cuckoo, there's a scene where our lead is running away and we hear Martin DuPont's Inside Out off their 1987 album, Hot Paradox.
I'm dreaming of a world world I knew a long time ago. I'm dreaming of a time when I used to move.
Oh my gosh. I was like, I almost jumped off the couch. I was like, there's no way this is a selected song for this. There's a era of, and we'll talk about some of these other 80s bands where the vibe and the feeling of the songs are so 80s and so energetic, and they so are off kilter. They're not pop hits, but they fit, I think, in these sort of Halloween mixes because of the sort of odd energy they have. And Inside Out is one of those that, like, I absolutely love. All of their first albums, because there was, I think, three, and then they just did one last year, have this sort of air. And the band, for people that don't know, is Elaine Segur, who is also a surgeon. And that's who I was talking about earlier, where I'm like, it's a person that does one thing and then they do another. And you can find interviews now that I came across, because this is a band that I didn't even know they had a new album out last year, because they're like early 80s. But I mean, yeah, wait, 87. So to hear him talk about, like, yeah, and then I was doing work and I had my private practice, and then I was like, I want to get back into music because I've heard so many things in the last like 30 years. And I was like, what? Like, you can be a surgeon and an awesome electronic musician. And that's Elaine Segur. So again, that my choice is Inside Out from Martin DuPont from the movie Cuckoo from this year.
I'm loving the deep cutness of all of this.
Yeah.
I love that. And I've heard of Martin DuPont, but just a few songs like
Hmm.
that. I loved everything I've heard because that's very much like I love kind of weird electronica from the 80s,
Yeah.
particularly the early 80s. I did not know about The Surgeon, did not know about the new album. So I haven't seen this movie. I've got some research to do after this, which I love. This is so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah. I love research, and I love, like, when I saw Lose, the first feature from Tillman Singer, I was like, I love this. I love everything about this. My wife was like, do you like this? And that's my my way of knowing she's not having a good time with what I was watching. But I absolutely loved it. And so I was so excited that the next film was like English speaking in theaters. I was like, oh my gosh, so many people are going to get to see this director that I think is doing things very different. And yet, everyone I know that's watched Cuckoo was like, it's weird, but it's really well made. And I'm like, yes, that's right. Like it doesn't give you answers, but it also does in ways that aren't expositional. So I had a great time with it. I've seen it, I don't know, 4 times, and it came out this year. So I highly recommend it for people that like strange stuff, but also the soundtrack for it is very very fun because the lead character, she is in a band, and so she's like
Mhm.
practicing bass at one time, and her sister can't speak but she can hear, and then there's an auditory situation happening up in the hills where they're at. So there's just a lot of sound play that happens, and he does that in his first film as well. um, and I just nerd out over that stuff. I put on headphones and turn up the sound and just geek out like we're doing right now with this list. But
Oh man, that is amazing. I can't wait to check this out. That's so it's always why I get irritated whenever somebody's like complaining about like the state of any kind of art. Like, oh,
yes, yeah.
film is dead or punk's dead and it's like, well, where are you looking at, boo?
Mm-hmm.
There's always great stuff being made. You just have to be open to it and sometimes you have to do a little work.
Yeah.
Gotta do a little legwork. But that's to me, that's the most fun part. It's like when you discover something that just hits you in that way, that visceral way.
Yes, yeah. Or like new movies that can introduce people to older bands, or conversations like ours could help someone that maybe hasn't heard of, Rocktober Blood, that then can go
Mhm.
back. And sometimes that can be the entry point for them into Thor.
Oh my God. Don't even get me going on Thor. I love John Michael Thor so much. And
Yes.
I feel ashamed because I don't have any Thor on my list. But most of his music and film to me it feels summery.
Yes.
He makes me like spring or summer. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, the weather's warming up. But my next pick
Yes.
is perfect for autumn. And it actually is attached to a film you have mentioned,
Oh,
but it's a different song. And
excellent.
that's why when you said Linnea Quigley, I was like, yes and no, because my pick is from Return of the Living Dead,
Mm-hmm.
and it's Love Under Will by the Jet Blackberries.
Yes, I have my will, no fatal trespasses for me. This tree bears a fruit.
Like we said, that
Yep.
soundtrack is great, but I feel like that song, like that one and the Tall Boys, Take a Walk, end up being the two that I actually visit the most
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons. But this song to me is so kind of got like a cool kind of like early 80s goth rock kind of just like eerie feel to it. Like
Yes.
it's got a nice somberness.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that the titles even kind of like you could take it as being like a Crowley reference.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you got like that possible sort of a cult tinge, which is always
Mm-hmm.
cool. And to me, it's like it highlights the beauty of Return of the Living Dead as a movie and the soundtrack that I love so much is that the film, like the stuff that's fun in it and that's funny works, and it is fun and it's legit
Yes.
funny.
Yes.
But the stuff that's in it that's really kind of weird and effective and sad and creepy is legit all those things. And it's to me, that is like almost like a unicorn
Yeah.
because there's plenty
Yes.
of horror comedies I love, but I wouldn't call any of them effectively spooky. Like, I
Right.
mean,
That's a
Young
good point.
Frankenstein's a classic. Abbott and
Mm-hmm.
Costello Meet Frankenstein, classic. I know I'm not going to say Transylvania 65000 is a classic in those terms. I love that movie though. I
Same.
do love it. But
Same.
no, none of these films are spooky. Return of the Living Dead has moments that legit are just kind of like you're laughing one minute and then you're like, holy fuck, like
Yeah.
this is and this music and this song really combines this. And I think the Jet Blackberries are a really underrated band because
Mm-hmm.
I have their first album, which a very good friend gifted me because he's like, of anybody I know you're gonna be the one that appreciates this on vinyl. And I'm like, yes. And it's phenomenal, especially like if you're into bands, um, like that quite like the Gun Club, but if you
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of vibe, that just sort of 80s kind of like you have a little bit of guitar rock, but it's still very dark and it's like, you're in the middle of nowhere and it's 3 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
and some bad decision making has definitely happened. This is perfect. And the weird thing I found out about the song though is this song doesn't appear on any of the Jet Blackberries physical albums that I could find. However, their previous incarnation was called New Math,
Huh.
which I can see why they changed their name because
Yeah.
that's a terrible
It's bad.
terrible band name. But but it's on that. It's on their album Gardens, which now I kind of want to listen to the rest of that album because I bet it's great. But yeah, love Underwolf. I think it's a fantastic, just really good, moody song.
Yes, I had it as one of my options. I mean, like you said, this soundtrack is just full of them. It's full of,
Mhm.
it's such a well put together and curated by Dan O'Banion. I mean, that's so awesome when the director gets a hand in aiding in that, tone of the film. Wow, excellent pick.
Ooh.
My third pick is a film I talk about every October. I know because I went back and listened to like horror picks from 2 of our years, and boy, do I love to talk about this movie. But I can't help it. It's Toby Hooper.
Yay.
This is from 1986. It's a sequel. It's perfection for me in the spooky holiday season. And I was going to talk about the track that plays the opening scene on the bridge, but I won't because I feel like it gets a lot of shine, and there's other cuts on this soundtrack that I really love. One of them is from a band that I put on most of my Halloween mixes the last 10 years because I love their song Bloodletting, a vampire song. But that's not in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. But another song is, and it's called Haunted Head. Yeah, I love to have spooky vibes, dark punk, metal, industrial, goth. I like to have it all in a mix. And Concrete Blonde just has this way of being this like punk kind of energy, but it's just different. I don't know. And Bloodletting, a vampire song, is like you could open every Halloween mix with it. I don't care. It's so good. But Haunted Head is really great too, and it's fast and it's energetic, and you need parts in the mix where you pick up the pace and times where you kind of slow it down and let it breathe. And this is definitely a song that picks up the pace.
Oh my God. My heart just grew like 20 times its original size. I love, and that is a soundtrack I feel like doesn't,
No.
for my taste, doesn't get enough
Mm-mm.
praise. Like it should be put right next to Return of the Living Dead because
Yeah.
Haunted Head is a phenomenal song. Also,
Mm-hmm.
isn't that if because it's been a little while, is that whole scene where Tex comes out kind of drunkenly singing like how did he like he's doing it's so hilarious. Like but that whole, oh my God, Torch Song's White Knight is one
Yes.
of my favorite songs ever, like
Yeah.
made.
Produced by William Orbit. I almost had that on the list as well. That soundtrack is full of them. It's
Oh
really
my
good.
God, yes, the Lord of the New Church
Yes.
song.
Yep. Also on my
Oh,
list.
yes, like, oh my God, excellent, excellent pick. Excellent movie. God, I
So
love
you're
that
not picking
movie.
anything from the soundtrack.
Amazingly enough, no.
Okay, then I'll just
Like,
say for anyone that may not know what I was alluding to, the song that plays on the bridge is Oingo Boingo. Is the song that plays on the bridge in the opening scene is No One Lives Forever by Oingo Boingo. That's the part where they're terrorizing the kids that have been shooting the mailboxes in the scene that like really for me, I mean, I get it if someone, I mean, I don't, if someone doesn't like Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but like when I was a kid, seeing Toby Hooper fuse like the dark humor with the horror stuff, shot so gorgeously, and this awesome, energetic soundtrack, it was just perfect for us, the kids in the 80s that liked horror. Like it just,
oh my God,
I loved
yes.
it. So, like Return of the Living Dead, I could see someone young now watching it and not understanding like what it means to so many people that saw it at the right time, but like it really, it's a fantastic soundtrack completely.
Oh my God, yes. And God, that's weird that of all the Oingo Boingo songs, that one got put, I think, on a number of
Yeah.
soundtracks. Like
Yeah.
it's part of that Albert Pien movie, Down Twisted, which somebody
Oh,
desperately needs to put on Blu-ray. If any
seriously.
any of you lovely boutique labels are listening,
Mhm.
please get that movie. The excellent pick.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
actually, speaking of the 80s, which I realize, I think my list definitely heavily, I have a few exceptions and a
Same.
few sort of swerves, but my list heavily is like very 80s.
Yeah, it's hard not to
Um
be, really.
right, right.
Yeah.
It just felt right. I'm going with another opening theme This one,
Okay.
courtesy of Ken Higgins and Jim Calabrese, Spookies.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I
It's
can't
so
believe I
good.
thought you were gonna. Oh, okay. That
We're-
is, yeah. Well played. Well played.
Oh my God, Spookies. And I've seen some people, this is a movie, I feel like it's more recent times has gotten more of the love it deserves.
The Blu-ray got it really.
Yeah, and I love this movie.
Yeah.
I've loved it since I remember renting it on VHS as a little kid.
Yep.
And it's like if you're a monster kid, this movie is like it's like they made it for you. There is
Yes.
so much great practical effects. There is
Mhm.
so much strange choices, and part of that you realize later on is because it was an unfinished movie and they and added some stuff, the whole like sort of wraparound with the weird bald guy
Yeah.
and his bride who looks kind of like Winona Ryder. But that stuff's fun too.
Yeah.
But for me, the two biggest things I love about this movie is the late great Peter Iazello Jr., who plays the puppeteer. That
Yeah.
was honestly when I first saw it as a kid. I was like, who is this man? This is the greatest character that's ever lived.
Yes.
He is so awesome. And he's wearing a t-shirt that's literally a picture of him and his puppet.
Yeah. I want
Where
that.
Thank you. I was just thinking, is this on TeePublic?
Yeah,
Is
it should be.
could somebody make an Etsy and just make me and Dirk this shirt?
Yes. I'll wear it.
Same. And I got really lucky years later to like I sent Peter when he was still with us, obviously, friend request as a lark because I couldn't believe I found the man that played this character on
Yeah.
Facebook, and he accepted it and we became friends. And he
Wow.
was and forever is. If you're like me and Jazz Coleman always says,
Yes.
never talk about the dead in past tense because they're always with us in some capacity. And I always thought that's sweet. So
I
I'm going to
love
go with
that.
Jazz on that.
Yeah.
Plus Killing Joke. How is Killing Joke not on my list?
I mean,
But anyway.
same. That's another band where I was like, I'm just gonna Google Killing Joke soundtrack and see what I can find. Not much.
I know that always puts us in danger where it's like there's some random ass movie we haven't seen
Yeah.
where it's like, but it happens to have Killing Joke. But Peter, just one of the most inspirational humans, such a sweetheart. And he actually gifted me another soundtrack. He sent me
Whoa.
the From a Whisper to a Scream,
That's right.
which is not on my list,
Yeah.
but that's so cool and I appreciate that. But between Peter and that great, I love that opening theme. It's
Yeah.
so it's so spooky. It's perfect for spookies because
It's
it is
perfect.
spooky. And
Mhm.
it kind of is that perfect tinge of like one of those $1 cassettes you would find.
Yep.
Special Halloween spooky haunted house effects tapes and CDs were used to be in abundance.
Yes.
I mean, you would go to the pharmacy and they would
Yeah.
have it, something like that. It was so cool. But I don't say that in a derogatory way. I think this is a really beautiful, like beautifully made soundtrack. The whole soundtrack's great. I it's weird. I couldn't find anything on really on Ken Higgins other
Hmm.
than this, but Jim Calabrese looked like he's done a lot of work kind of as a studio guy.
Hmm.
And weirdly enough, and see, this all ties to our little rabbit hole we were talking about. I found out 2 factoids about him that I thought were
Yeah.
really interesting. One, he did music for something called the Great American Centerfold Surge in
What?
1987. And the description sounds like exactly what you're picturing. It's like we're in Fort Lauderdale, this is Cindy and her boobs are out. But for those of us who grew up trying to like, sneak peeks on like Cinemax or HBO as kids,
Mhm.
if for anybody who's younger, there was a time and point where a lot of us had to work very hard to see nudity.
Yes. Yeah.
And you really had to take what you could get. I'm not saying I did that. Of
Well,
course, I'm
I grew up in a video store. I did that. Yeah.
Yes, no, we all did it. We all did it. But he also co-wrote or has a writing credit on a Whitney Houston song.
What?
It's a song called Where You Are. That's off her second album. I don't know the song. I'm not a Whitney Houston fan. I have nothing against her.
No.
I mean, my favorite thing is when she told Bobby Brown to kiss her ass on that whatever reality show they had, because I used to watch The Soup all the time on
Oh
E!
God, yeah.
And they would play that like a
Mhm.
meditation tape almost. It was so good. But anyways, I digress. But yes, Spookies. If anybody listening, if you haven't seen it, I think the movie as a whole is a great pick for Halloween. I think it's
Yes,
perfect for this season.
for
And the
sure.
soundtrack is just the cherry on top.
Yeah, excellent pick. I'm so excited that you chose it. I never in a million years thought it was going to be a part of this conversation, and look at that. Now it is. Oh,
You bring me on board. Spookies will get brought up in some capacity.
that's so great. I mean, between that and Rocktober Blood, we're doing the Dark Lord's work here.
Yes.
My fourth pick. Okay, there's a film from 2006. It's straight out of Norway, and I really enjoy the trilogy, especially the second one, because it's very like a Norwegian Halloween 2, if you will. But
Mhm.
if you want to end a movie and you're like, I don't know if people are really sold on it, then you got to end it with a really energetic song. And so what they end it with is what I'm choosing, and that's Turbo Negro's All My Friends Are Dead.
Where are your friends? Where are your friends? Where are your friends, man? What? Where are my friends? All my friends are dead. All my friends are dead.
It's probably the newest of the music that I choose, but it is. I love to put songs into a spooky season mix that don't necessarily have a spooky vibe, but are definitely about death. And so this song, every time I hear it, I just go, yeah, okay, this works. And I wanted something to kind of go against the grain of everything else I had, just for some contrast. And so that's what we're going with right here. Not much else to say. Are you a fan of Cold Prey 1 through 3?
I have not seen.
It's really underseen. It's the series starts off obviously in Norway with three friends in the mountains. One of them gets, of course, injures their ankle, and then they find a lodge that may or may not be, spoiler alert, it's not uninhabited. And so it's a slasher in Norway. And then the sequel picks up where the final girl is in a hospital, where perhaps the person committing crimes in the first one is then brought. So now we have everyone brought together in a very confined space. And then the third one's kind of a deviation, but I think the lead is an excellent lead, and it's very interesting. I love watching, whatever subgenre, slasher, whatever, from other countries, and seeing like what are the tropes that they're going to pick up, or what are they going to bring that's new. It's just very interesting. And this is a very 2006 pick for better or worse, but it's worth checking out. Cold Prey. It doesn't really have a great release in the States. There is a 4, and if you have a multi-region, you can get all 3 on Blu-ray, a little set, which is very nice. But I digress. The song Turbo
I
Negro.
want to check this out. Oh my god! And the fact that they used a Turbo Negro song.
Yeah,
I'm curious.
And
I'm super curious.
the rest of it does not have a soundtrack, and it's got a score, but there's nothing. And so when it suddenly just like kicks off with "All My Friends Are Dead," you're like, "Whoa, okay, now that's a way to end this thing." Like, oh gosh, high energy. Heather, what's your 5th pick?
We have gone from your sublime to my ridiculous here. But I could not help myself in keeping in these sort of 80s movies about rock bands. And this isn't even my only one. There's one more I realized. I have from Hard Rock Zombies,
Okay.
Morte Ascendre
Oh my god.
by Paul Cebu. One could say this is actually probably the only piece of music that actually rocks on this soundtrack. And I actually have a lot of love for this movie, so I'm not sarking. I think the film's a lot of fun.
Agreed.
And actually, weirdly enough, out of most of And I do love the whole hard rock 80s horror movie genre. Yes.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
I have the Blu-ray
Beautiful.
with
The Blu-rays.
Slaughterhouse Rock from Vinegar
Yeah.
Syndrome.
Well, and the Blu-ray, we get like gore. We
Mm-hmm.
get like some gore that had been uncut, which I always love that. Especially when it's a little grainier in quality.
Yes.
It
Me
always makes me
too.
feel like I'm seeing something a little more forbidden.
Uh-huh.
It's always so cool. But for some reason, a lot of these films, including, like Black Roses, and Trick or Treat,
Mhm.
where even though like these films are like a lot of fun, realistically, it's kind of like the metal bands are the bad guys and the moral majority are right.
Yeah. It's weird.
Right? It's kind
backwards.
of weird that there's like this conservatism.
Yeah.
Where in Hard Rock Zombies, the villains are the moral majority. The villains are basically the close-minded like town elders
Mhm.
and this weird family. Oh my God, this movie is so bananas.
Yes.
That includes Hitler, his lover, who there's like a knife-wielding werewolf
Mhm.
woman. I love this movie.
Me
so
too.
among many other colorful cast members and characters, but the band are the kind of the good guys. I mean, even though like the lead guy played by E.G. Curcio, he's clearly infatuated with the girl that is not of age, but it's just played off like it's romantic. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
he even does this whole song where it's like, I'm so in love, but you're so young. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what?
Yeah.
What? No. But honestly, anybody that knew guys or knew of people like that in the 80s, that was not, sadly, different time period. I had friends who had older brothers who were always like, some of those guys were dating teenagers. It wasn't cool. But
Sure.
people, I don't know. It wasn't cool. Don't do that now, please. Okay.
Look, there's some Depeche Mode songs we all have to struggle with these days where we go back and listen and go, "Oh, Martin, what?"
Yeah. Oh, I know. This is yeah, different. We learn better, we do better.
There you go.
But Morte Sandre, which is the piece of music played, which is literally the piece of music used to raise the dead.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool track. I think you always got to have something that's kind of fun and a little cheesy for your Halloween playlist. What's cool is Paul Sabu, I didn't realize this till recently, is the son of the Hollywood actor Sabu, and this actress named Marilyn Cooper. And Paul Sabu has done a lot of stuff, very prolific. He has over 451 credits
Oh my
on
gosh.
Discogs. Yeah, this guy has worked a lot. And I saw that he worked at some point with Lee Aaron and Alice Cooper, which for
What?
both great. I don't feel like enough people mentioned Lee Aaron. Metal Queen is a banger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so very cool. I think Hard Rock Zombies is a fun movie. I think it's always good to do kind of like these little mini marathons for the
Yes.
season. And plus you get to see the moral majority get their comeuppance, which should have been in every one of these movies.
Yes.
About Rocktober Blood's its own thing. I don't really put that in there because it's not really the band. Heavy metal's not
Yeah.
part of the problem in it. It's just,
But-
it's the killer
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Black Roses, same thing. I mean, the
Oh my
band just coming to
God.
town
Yeah.
and turning everyone to it's
And it's King Cobra. Like, I love Black Roses, but like you're like, oh man, this movie's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to hear the music. And then it's King Cobra, and it's basically King Cobra. If anybody familiar, which was Carmine Appice's fan. Carmine Appice is great. I mean, legend. But oh my God, King Cobra. I'm like, really? What, was Crocus not available? Like, I'm just
Crocus.
like, this is the band that's turning kids into demons.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure imagine if somebody done that with Merciful Fate.
Yes. Yeah.
How much, oh my God. But that's part of the fun of Black Roses. It's the whole film is just a fun kind of like it's like a carnival dark house, right?
Yes.
It's not going to scare you,
Yeah.
but you enjoy it, and you're probably going to eat a funnel cake afterwards, so
There you
it's
go.
fine.
Yes. Well said.
But
And perfect, and it ties into my next pick, which is a
Ooh.
great place to have a funnel cake. If you're having a horror beach party from 1964, it's Zombie Stomp by the Delaires.
Oh, everybody do the zombie stomp. You slam your foot down with an awful thump. You reach out further, further. Step me closer, step me closer. Ooh, it's the limited
Holy hell, amazing.
Yeah, so I think it plays really well with the song that you just chose. And I mean, you got a black and white movie with radioactive monsters on a beach. It's like, what's not to love? Kind of going back to that Cramps Fever vibe. It's just, you need these sort of trapped in time, but they kind of start to feel timeless almost after a while, where it's like there's surf guitar, there's werewolf sounds, there's stuff that you're just like, yes, give me some of this in the middle of my, metal and electronic stuff and things. Like it's a vibe that fits the spooky season. So that's my choice.
I love that. That is so brilliant. And realistically, I would say a good 40 to 50% of almost every like big Halloween playlist I put is probably 50s and 60s.
Yeah, there's a lot
Like
of great
weird
stuff.
surf music and
Hmm.
instrumentals and I love it. That's such a cool pick. That's such a fun movie
Yeah,
too.
I agree. Yeah, there's only so many times you can hear Monster Mash before you're like, okay, like we got to have something else. And the 50s and 60s, you can find some great, weird, odd corners of music to like
Oh,
pad out your
completely.
mix.
Yes, there's so many nuggets. And I will say the best version of Monster Mash is the Flesh Tones do a
Yeah.
version called
Yeah.
in Spanish. So good. But that's an excellent pick.
uh,
I love that.
Thank you. What is your sixth pick?
Well, this I don't know if this is gonna be the one where I may alienate some listeners. I hope it
Okay.
don't,
All
because
right.
we're all under the spooky Halloween tree together.
Mm-hmm.
Little nod to Ray Bradbury. See, that should get me back on some good
There you go.
sides.
There you go.
But I gotta go with my heart because I love this movie and I love the soundtrack. And I think the title track is great for the Halloween season. And I'm picking Rob Zombie's House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, nice.
Police have identified more victims and plan on more than just the 4 murder charges filed today.
Confirm earlier reports of
The
cannibalism.
building was a scene of ghoulish
A
slaughter.
large kettle on the stove which held boiled body parts.
Identified more victims and
Killed even more.
plan on more than just the 4 murder charges filed today.
Had sex with some of his victims before he killed them, and that he was also a necrophiliac.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually think that may be my favorite Rob Zombie song, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I love that title track. And it just really, which is perfect for the movie,
Hmm.
it really does make you feel like you're lost in some scary ass backwoods road in the middle of the country, especially if you're in the South.
Hmm.
and and you're just thinking about, oh God, what kind of scary ass mountain people am I gonna encounter? I love it. I think it's a great piece of music. I love that whole soundtrack. Pussy Liquor is another great track
Sure.
on this soundtrack, but I think the title track's the best fitting for the season. And I
Yeah.
know a lot of people either really seem to love this movie or they hate it. It seems to be very polarizing. I love it. I'm not saying it's a perfect movie, but I think if you're looking for only perfection from film, then you're probably kind of missing out on a lot of the film going experience,
I
you
mean,
know?
a lot of what we've talked about, they'll be missing out on if they're looking for perfection.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. But I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about this movie?
So I sometimes when I go into movies, I have like a chip on my shoulder, and I am aware, like I've hate watched, the last Halloween trilogy. I stuff where I'm like, I'm so irritated that they say none of the other people's efforts in their sequels count, but then they're going to reference
Mhm.
it, that I'm not even really watching the movie. And for this one, I was so excited for it to come out, and then it never came out. I'm not like a huge music fan of Rob Zombies, but I like people that do their thing and stay, create consistently for the tone of their work. And so I know he kept getting messed with, and they kept forcing cuts and all these things. And so then when I saw it, with all of its like hyper stylized editing and everything, I was like, this isn't for me. And so I have only really seen it one time. But because of recent conversations, this one now included, I'm going to watch it this season with kind of fresh eyes because my favorite of his films is Devil's Rejects is one of my favorites where he takes the characters from the first film, turns it into like a 60s, road grindhouse movie with little vignettes with old characters from horror films and I think the comedy in the script is so funny, the Elvis stuff and everything and
Oh my God, the Tootie fucking
yeah,
Fruity.
all of that stuff I think is so amazing. And then I liked Lords of Salem a lot. So I'm always interested in watching all of his things. I do really love his Halloween too. But Devil's Rejects is one of those I just saw in the early 2000s, and then I need to go back and revisit. But I am aware of the song that you're talking about, and I think it's perfect. I like it when he does the slower, slinkier, grimier stuff because a lot of
Same.
his earlier like Living Dead Girl and the stuff that like was remixed by Lords of Acid and all that. Like, yeah, sure, that works because I like these bands that are remixing it or whatnot, and I like the words
Same.
that you're saying. But like, it's not like this theme or there was another song I can't think of right now, but it's the same thing. It's that it's got a lilt to it and it's crawling along and you're like, ooh, this is dark and interesting. Where are we going here? Whereas like now he has like new songs where it's like we're all fucking in a UFO and I'm like, I don't know. That's not I don't know my in for this one, but
That's
you know.
yeah, I honestly haven't kept up with this new stuff at all. And but no, I love Devil's Rejects. And
Yeah.
I think it is a better film than House
Oh,
as a whole,
yeah.
but I do think House is I do love it. I have a huge soft spot for it. And I think two of the reasons is one, his casts are always great.
Yeah.
He always puts like the coolest people. And of course, Tom Tolles.
Oh,
That where it's
yeah.
like
Yeah.
I will watch anything with Tom Tolles. And especially because I remember when I first saw it, the main thing I'd seen with him before that was Henry.
Mm.
And I always thought he was scarier than Michael
Rooker,
Rooker.
yeah, for sure.
To be honest, I don't know if it's because like I'm not saying exactly like Otis that film, but it's like I've had people in my life that were very like kind of gross and kind of perverted like Otis, and so it's just like ugh. And he's so great in that role.
Yeah.
Like he was such a brilliant actor, anyways. But then watching House, and I'm like, who's this handsome kind of sheriff guy? And then I'm like, oh my god, it's
Yeah.
Otis. And it was like, but then I was like, oh, but then I saw a lot more stuff with Tom Tolles, and I'm like, oh, this guy's just a genius. It's and the fact that it's such a pure film of love, like you can tell Rob
Yes.
Zombie went in that film, he loves everything he's doing. And I think when I see a filmmaker that excited,
Yes.
even if I don't love the film personally, like 100%, though I do love House of Thousand Corpses, but if I see anybody doing anything like that and it's just coming from such a genuine place of joy, they will always have my respect.
Same.
And
Yeah.
especially because we live in such an age where there's like test audiences
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything's made for a franchise money, and it's just so cynical. I love seeing just passion. Give me that passion. Give me
Yeah.
the passion projects. So yeah, let me know what you think when you revisit
I
it.
will, yeah. I'm excited about it. I think my love for 2 is going to taint the rewatching of 1 because I have so much respect for it. Because the writing in 2, like he doesn't just pick people from past films and not give them something. Like he writes
Mhm.
these little bits for them so they each get to shine in these scenes. And so I think that love is going to carry over to the rewatch, but we'll see because I've spent so much time with Bill Moseley in 2. I just think he's utterly terrifying in it. I love it to death. But yeah, I mean,
Oh
everybody is.
God, yeah, that's another actor. Just
Whew.
Bill Moseley. Yeah, speaking of Texas Chainsaw 2.
Yes.
Oh God, he's so lovable as Chop Top.
Yes.
Though.
No,
He's
I mean,
oh.
I've always loved him, and to see him get to like shine like that again, you're just like, yes, great, perfect.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent pick. My 6th pick is kind of a cheat. So in 1999, a little movie called The Blair Witch opened, and people that were around at the time will remember how it was advertised, the idea of found footage. People were like, is it real? Is it what? Talking about me and having a chip on your shoulder, I wasn't super excited about the movie coming out. But the thing that they did that I thought was really smart, aside from the marketing, is that there's not a soundtrack for the movie. And you might be thinking, Dirk, where does this music come from? It's found footage. Well, Josh, one of the characters in the movie, created a mixtape, and that was released as a soundtrack companion to the film. And the thing that I think is so interesting is if you were going to do this to something that was so popular and so big, you would choose songs that as you can cherry pick from 20, 30 years of, goth, industrial was popular at the time, hard rock, metal. You're going to choose things that, build it out. It's his mixtape. He's listening to it in the car with his friends. That is not what they do. It opens with Lydia Lunch's Gloomy Sunday, and then they go on for Skinny Puppy's Draining Faces, which for those of you Skinny Puppy fans know that a majority of it is just a weird soundscape. It's so bizarre that they chose that. Bauhaus's Kingdom's Coming. Then they go into Creatures Don't Go to Sleep Without Me. Laibach, God is on there.
Yes. God, I love Laibach.
It's so nuts. Frontline Assembly's Laughing Pain, which is not a popular cut from them. And then Typo Negative Haunted.
Oh my God. Okay. Holy shit.
Yes.
How did I? Oh my God.
And then and then they go with the song I'm choosing, which is Meat Beat Manifesto's She's Unreal.
Give me love. Give me love so that I can kill.
It was also on their Subliminal Sandwich album, which was a double album. Nothing Records released when Trent Reznor was given carte blanche over at Interscope to be like, what do you want to release? And he's like, a double album of Meat Beat Manifesto. It contains a sample from Thernody for Sharon Tate by Freddie Hubbard and Ilion's album Sing a Song for Song Me, which is a voice of a woman saying, give me love so that I can kill. I like having something sparse and kind of jazz, hip-hop percussion kind of into the mix, a little breathing room, if you will, in between highs and lows. So I wanted something kind of mid-tempo, and I don't think Jack Dangers ever really gets to be a part of anything. He's always, I feel like, 5 to 10 years ahead of electronic music, and by the time people catch up, then he's like, I'm just gonna make weird dubby stuff now forever. Goodbye. And he just hangs out and smokes weed with giant, wall-sized synthesizers, which nobody's using anymore. I love him to death. And so Meet Me Manifesto, She's Unreal is included, but it's only because of good old Josh from Blair Witch Project's mix that he created.
Oh my God. I love this pick for so many reasons. I'm also, you were talking about having a chip on your shoulder. I remember that soundtrack being a thing.
Yeah.
And it was one of the things where I liked, when I finally sat down and watched Blair Witch, yeah, I liked it. I mean, by the time I saw it, it had been hyped up so much. And probably like you, I think the problem is for a lot of us who have just always sought out the more obscure.
Yep.
We're not jaded, but it's kind of like stuff that might affect not the normies. That's terrible. That sounds terrible.
I use it all the time. I mean, I think I'm normal, and that's how you realize that you're weird, is when people are like, look around, and you're like, yeah, I'm like everybody, and they're like, no, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm weird, okay, got it. I'm gonna put this cow skull I'm carrying down, and it's
my double Meat Beat Manifesto.
Yes, my Subliminal Sandwich CD that I'm like, this is really good. Yeah, that's well said. I think that's important, talking about the chip on your shoulder or going into something and being not jaded, but sort of off. You're not 100% open. I don't hear a lot of people discuss that. And so I think it's always important to be able to check yourself on things, because it's when you're talking about art, we're people are saying this is good, this is bad, this is 1 star, this is 5 star. I don't see a lot of ownership for people to be like, I was also on my laptop, or I was, having a bad day, or, everyone said it was great, and I was going in expecting this brilliant thing rather than what these people created, which could have been brilliant on a different day, So I think that that's nice that you bring that up because I think about that a lot.
Oh, totally. Well, and I think that's such an important thing. And I think you're 100% right. I think too few writers and people who professionally do any sort of commentating on culture in general, nobody wants to like to be like, I was wrong. Everybody
Right.
kind of wants to save face or seem like I'm the expert. But the
Hmm.
truth is, nobody on the planet is 100% expert on anything.
Yeah.
That's the truth. And I'm with you. I respect people. One of my favorite writers ever is Lester Bangs. And part of that is that he was constantly being like, he'd hate something and then go back and give it a listen and be like, I was fucking wrong.
Yeah. Yep.
He did that with the MC5. He initially panned the first album,
Whoa.
hated it, went back to it a few months, and was like, it was like he saw the light and he
Hmm.
was championing it, and he was like, yeah, I was fucking wrong.
Hmm.
And that to me, just having that kind of just raw like nakedness of being like, yeah, I'm a human being, because
Hmm.
that's human.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
I think the more we can have those conversations, the better, because
Hmm.
it's like that's what connects all of us. And some things, and also some things aren't meant for everybody.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'll have moments where I'm funning on something like we all do, but
Sure.
ultimately, if something makes somebody else happy, even if you hate it, that's okay.
Yeah.
If they genuinely get enjoyment out of it, that's beautiful. Like, not everything's going to be for everybody, and that's a good thing. I mean, how weird would it be if you and I went into a Hot Topic and there was like a, merchandise, like a Funko Pop for the reflecting skin?
Oh, that just made my soul leave my body.
I know,
Sadness.
right?
That's not.
Like, so that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
I'm not, so it's, there's something for everybody. That's not a bad thing. And yeah, there are plenty of things, there's some things I will wait forever on watching, just because I can sense.
Yes, I do it too.
I'm like,
Hmm.
if I watch this right now, I'm just gonna go into it kind of pissy.
Yeah. Give myself
And
space. Yeah.
exactly. And I'm like, that's not fair. Like, somebody,
Mm-mm.
even the shittiest movie, if somebody made it caring about it,
Yeah.
then you want to at least do them a service and honor that. Now, if it's like some Michael Bay, like soulless
Yeah. No, no,
product
no.
shit, fuck it.
Yeah.
Like, they can go cry in their mansions.
Yeah.
I don't care about,
Yeah.
if somebody's a millionaire, they're fine.
Hmm.
They're fine.
Hmm.
Okay. But for indies,
Yep.
for, especially like, be kind. Everybody be kind to each other. Um, unless apparently it's me talking about King Cobra.
Sorry, King Cobra.
Sorry. Sorry. I love Carmine Appice's work of Vanilla Fudge for what it's worth.
Oh my gosh. And will it be your seventh pick? Well, I guess we'll find out right now. Heather, what do you have for your seventh selection?
It's not Vanilla Fudge.
Ah.
Or King Cobra. But it is, I think, a classic movie for the season and a classic soundtrack for that season. And it's a piece of music called Drive to Santa Mira by Alan Howarth and John Carpenter from Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Yes.
I fucking love this movie.
Yeah, same.
This is my Halloween. This is my Halloween movie. I mean, I respect all the others. But to be honest, and this may be a little bit of a hot take, Michael Myers has never been like my favorite horror character,
Same.
because he's always a little automaton, a little bit.
Mhm.
I always love the stuff around him, like the characters around, and the atmosphere around, but Halloween 3 is like it's own thing.
Yep.
You have a great villain with Colonel Cochran.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, oh my God, one of my favorite performances. I love it when he's like, we're playing the best trick of all, one on the children. Like,
Yes.
oh, it's so good. And of course, the man, Tom Atkins,
I mean,
a
come
man, oh, so legendary. Like, elderly nuns start ovulating when they're near Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins just has that factor. He's just, you just look at him, you're like, damn, he is one cool dude. And his character, I mean, he's like slapping nurses on the
Mm-hmm.
ass. He sleeps with the character, and then afterwards, like, wait, how old are you?
Yeah.
What was it with the 80s guy? And at least he didn't write a song about it.
That's true.
Dave God.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yes, but this one, particularly this piece of music, Drive to Santa Mara, just has kind of that, like, like when you're on the highway and it's late at night and it's kind of
Mhm.
cold and you just see kind of a flashing light in the distance.
Yeah.
It's like, and the night's almost completely black. Like, it's a dark night. There's hardly any other cars out. And there's just that one kind of spooky light. That's what it makes me think of. Like,
Yeah.
it just has such a creepy etherealness to it that I really, really love.
Yeah, I agree. This is the Halloween movie that I watch every year. The masks, I make mixes that start off with the commercial. It's like it's my favorite. I get the whole shape and he's evil and you don't know what he is and whatnot, but it just never was that compelling to me. So, I'll watch them and whatnot, but kind of like, Jason, it's like, I get it. It's like the big baddie, forceful thing, but I don't know. I definitely, if you listen to my standalone horror movie or horror movie sequel episodes, I watched a lot of horror comedies and I liked, crazy goblins and things that have character. And that's what I really
Yes.
got into as a kid. And so, that's different strokes for different folks. But yeah, excellent pick. My seventh pick, the song's known by two titles, partially sang by Nita Josie Hana, a cantankerous sister in the movie. She's the heckin' best, and she's telling you to frig yourself and frig off from Psycho Goreman.
I'm the heckin' best. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Frig all the rest. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Frig off. Frig off. Frig yourself. I'm the heckin' best. Hey, asshole. Nice Halloween costume. Frig all the rest.
I love Astron 6, and this movie is so fun. It brings me such joy. I just showed this video which is just a clip from the movie, to my 10-year-old daughter who doesn't really like gore per se in movies. She doesn't like scary stuff yet. She's very hesitant, so most of my collection, I'm like, when are we going to watch all these? But I showed her this, and she thought it was hilarious, and so it really validated everything for me, especially when a kid says, "Hey, nice costume, asshole," and Psycho Goreman makes the kid explode into a pile of goo. I was just like, yeah, this is great. She is the heckin' best. Everyone should frig off. So I had to include Psycho Goreman in here. So
You have just made me want to see that movie. And I have to confess, my parents, of all people, saw this when
what?
it first came out. Yeah. And they were like, oh my God, Heather, you have to see it. This little girl is just like you when you were that age. And what we were just talking about, I was just like, and they called me out. They're like, "Oh, you're too good. Now that we've recommended it, you won't see it." But it did make me like put it off, and I'm not proud of that.
Yeah,
But I'm human.
we'll
I'm
do it.
human.
We all do it.
And plus, my parents, in my defense, my parents have shown me both stuff that transform me, but they've also made me watch some stuff that I love them and I won't hold it against them.
Mhm.
But we won't talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. But The Postman with Kevin Costner.
Oh,
Anyway,
no.
I'm not bitter. I'm still
Oof.
bitter. But
Yeah.
that was rough. But you know what? I think I may have to see it this year.
Okay.
That sold me, and I probably owe them an apology because honestly, my parents also were the ones that got me to watch Trick or Treat, and I fucking love that movie.
Yeah.
So
Well, great. So I'll watch House of a Thousand Corpses, and you watch Psycho Gorman, and then we can talk about it.
We can kvetch.
Yeah, because we have some friends that they like more normal movies, I would say, and so when they come over, they're like, "Show me something," and I'm like, "Okay," but like she doesn't really do super gory stuff or like really scary things, so I pick things from the corners of oddball cinema that aren't like that, except
Mm.
for Psycho Goreman, because I was like, this gore is played for laughs. Like, this is a wild, fun horror movie, and they had the most fun watching it. They were cackling. I mean, and this little girl really is fantastic. I love all the Astron 6 stuff, like The Editor. Did you ever see The Editor? Which is,
That's on my watch list. I haven't
oh
watched
my
it yet, but I've
gosh.
been wanting to see that.
I mean, it's like the Naked Gun, but Giallo movies. Beyond that, because the Beyond is also referenced a bunch in there. But
Oh.
yes, it's for those that love those movies, like the Black Belly of a Tarantula and everything. Like, you'll get all the references, and I don't see a world where you won't be dying laughing, because you're like, I can't believe this was made for me. Like, it's like people probably felt about the Scream knockoff movies, whatever those were called. But
Oh, scary
yeah,
movie.
yeah, where they're like, "Oh, this works," what's up? But you'll be like getting like Lindsay references and stuff. But anyway, yeah. So my pick, Psycho Gorman. Heather, what is your eighth pick?
Well, you speaking of horror comedies, this film, the film I'm picking is a classic 60s song, and it's probably been used in a ton of movies. This is the movie
Okay.
I always associate it with because it's me. The song in question is Little Red Riding Hood by Sam the Sham and the Pharaohs, which I love. I just love the song as a standalone thing. And it's a fun, just I think a fun song to have on any Halloween playlist. But the movie I was associated with is My Mom's a Werewolf.
Yes.
Oh! Who's that I see walking in these woods? Why, it's Little Red Riding Hood. Hey there, Little Red Riding Hood. You sure are looking good. You're everything a big bad wolf could want. Listen to me, Little Red Riding Hood. I don't think little big girls should go walking in these spooky old woods alone. Ow! What big eyes you have, the kind of eyes that
Oh, what?
I love this movie. And actually recently there's a podcast I love, and they talked about this movie, but they were kind of like, oh, they were kind of like not positive about it. And yeah,
Oh.
again, it's not, I'm like, yeah, it's not, I'm not saying it's Young Frankenstein, but
Mm.
I think it's a really cute movie. I think it's fun. The cast is really cute, especially John Saxon plays like the werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
And John Saxon is, I mean, he's like a Tom Atkins for me. He's just
Yes.
great at everything.
Everything.
I probably helps that I saw this movie at a very key age, right on the verge of puberty. And I was like, John Saxon. Oh.
Hello.
And he's just like such a weird, sexy guy in this film, because he's like, his character says something like, I could just crawl up inside you and die.
Mm-hmm.
Which makes me want to go back to me at a certain age and be like, girl, are you okay?
Is this what?
Why
Huh.
it's John Saxon saying it. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's he also shrimps Susan Blankley, which is weird. I'm not into shrimping, but anywho. But it's such a fun, quirky movie. Ruth Buzzy's in it,
Yeah, she's
like,
great.
which is amazing. You get to see like there's a side character because like the teenage daughter, her best friend is totally like a monster kid.
Mm-hmm.
And this girl, I think there's certain movies like you would see at an age, and you're like, there's always like a side character that's into monster movies, and you're
Yes.
like, where are those kids in my high school or junior high?
I didn't know him.
I didn't either. And
Yeah.
I was like, these kids are cool. Like they're so cool,
Mm-hmm.
like reading Fangoria and
Yeah.
famous monsters and all that. But yeah, this is my pick. I think Sam the Sham Pharaoh is great, classic 60s kind of garage rock, which I think always hits well in anyways. Like you could
Mm-hmm.
definitely put the Sonics.
Oh
on
yeah.
that for some
Yeah, yeah.
great, playlists. But yeah, that is my pick. If anybody's a fan of like Mark Puro wrote the movie. He didn't direct it, but he did write it. So if you're a fan of films like Death Row Game Show, which is
Yeah.
hilarious, I
Yes.
will go to the grave defending that movie.
Yeah.
What was it? Polish Vampire Burbank,
Mhm.
Nudist Colony of the Dead, which that title song, by the way, almost made my list.
Close.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Yes.
It's such a great song. So, but if you like that kind of humor, I think you will love My Mom's a Werewolf.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. We had this in the video store, so that's how I saw it.
Yes.
Very fun. So my 8th pick. So in 2004, there was a remake that people were skeptical about, but I think it does its own thing enough, and it has an opening sequence where I was like, won over, and then we get into the credits, and I like to have something with energy. We already covered I like to have a song that talks about death. So it's off an album called Catholic Boy from 1980. It's People Who Died by Jim Carroll.
Cheddar sniffed the glue, he was 12 years old. Fell from the roof on East 29. Kathy was 11 when she pulled the plug. 26 reds and a bottle of wine. Bobby got leukemia, 14 years old. He looked like 55 when he died. He was a friend of mine. Those are people who died, died. 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 They were all my friends that just died. She worked in church, he let the gimmicks go rotten. So they died of hepatitis in upper Manhattan. Slime in Vietnam, bullet in the head, Bobby O.D.
Oh shit! What's
Yeah.
the movie? I'm
It's-
so curious. What is this
It's
remake
the
that
Dawn
has
of the
Jim
Dead
Carroll?
remake.
Oh my god! It
Yeah.
has been so long since I've seen it. I
Yeah.
forgot about the Jim Carroll effect. I love Jim Carroll.
I've
Holy
watched
shit.
just the opening sequence of that movie where she wakes up and there's the kid and then she gets in the car and then the camera pulls up and then I stop watching the movie. So I just forgot. And it's not because I dislike that movie. I just love that opening sequence. It's such a solid way
Yeah.
to open a film, and especially something where you're going in going, "Come on, man, it's Dawn of the Dead. Like, what can you do better than? I mean, you know." So I think that then instantly going into this montage of horrific things happening with Jim Carroll's song over the top. It's just I appreciate it so much now, and at the time I don't know that I really took much note of it in 2004 because I was sitting there with my arms folded, like, let's see what you got. And it's just such a great song. And I was thinking about it, and it was only put on my radar because I just Googled Jim Carroll songs on soundtracks. And sure enough, People Who Died popped up, and I was like, yes, I get it. I get it on the list. And so I get it in the conversation. That's my 8th pick.
Nice. Oh god, I love Jim Carroll. Yeah, God, classic. Catholic
Classic.
Boy's such a great album too. Like
Yeah.
that's I love it. How many other Halloween music lists is everybody gonna listen to that's gonna have a Jim Carroll on it?
Yeah, I know. I think the variety we're coming up with here is really superb. What is your 9th pick?
Well, and this is funny because after me praising variety, my next pick is I feel like probably the most obvious, but I could not put it on here. And that is Trick or Treat by the band Fastway.
Yes. It was on my list.
Yes, from the movie Trick or Treat. I have to confess, I love the soundtrack more than the movie.
Sure.
And I feel like because there are people that are ride or die with that film. I don't hate the film.
No.
My problem with the movie Trick or Treat is I didn't really like Mark Price. I mean, Mark Price is fine as an actor. I just feel like his character was very milquetoast.
Mhm.
And the only things I ended up really thinking were standout was, and I'm blanking now on the name of the actor that plays Sammy Kerr, but he's fantastic. Like I love Sammy Kerr
Yeah.
as a character. He's got a great look. He's a great villain. And this Fastway soundtrack kicks ass. This
agreed.
is a just fun, hard rock. This is true hard rock.
Mhm.
No, I love hard rock zombies, but you know, that's not really hard rock. But Fastway really is hard rock. And I mean, of course, it was formed initially as a super group between Pete Way from UFO and Fast Eddie Clark from Motorhead, though Pete Way was like out of the band, I think before they even recorded the first album.
Sounds about
So
right.
yeah, it's so great. It's just got that verve, it's got that energy. I recommend the whole album, but if I would have put together one song off of it, it's got to be this one.
Yeah, excellent pick. Yeah, I watched the movie. I think it's great. I'm excited to see Ozzy Osbourne as the preacher.
Oh,
You
I
know,
do love Oz.
it's there are things I appreciated about it. But if you put it side by side with the soundtrack and say, Dirk, which one do you want to spend more time with? It's going to be the soundtrack.
Oh,
That's all I'm saying.
100%. The movie's cute.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's got some cool effects.
It's
I do
got some
like the
cool stuff.
effects.
Yeah,
But
there's fun to be had with it for sure.
yeah.
Much like my next pick, which
Ooh.
is from some real sexual perverts. It's from Ghoulies 2 from 1987.
Yes.
Scream Until You Like It by Wasp.
Oh my God. Yes.
There was a lot of this genre of music initially on my list, and I was like, I need to pare it down, find a balance here. So it was like, who am I going to include on this? And I just love Ghoulies 2 so much, and I've watched it so many times. And Scream Until You Like It is such a just a cheeseball of a song that just has the tone and energy that I want in there. So I'm just like, I guess I have to do it. So that's how they found their way into my heart.
I know I've said this, I think about literally almost everything you've picked. And things that I didn't say about it was just because I need to learn more, because I'm sure I
Oh,
will
yeah, we all have
love
lots of
them.
stuff.
But this is phenomenal. And I do love the first one, especially because we get Michael DeBar. Like, how
Yeah.
crazy is it that Michael DeBar is in Ghoulies? I know,
Mhm.
speaking of great musicians too, but Ghoulies 2 is really like, that's where you start getting into like the sweet meat, I
Yes.
think, of the Ghoulies
It's at a
universe. And
carnival.
oh my God. And Wasp.
Yeah, and you get the giant ghoulie at the end, and that's the one where we really started to be like, okay, so that's frog, that's cat, that's I think they called the flying ghoulie. They didn't call it bat for some reason. And then there's fish is the one that comes out of the toilet despite looking like a frog. It's just like I love all of that. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh my God. If we do like a summer or spring mix for horror
Oh
movies,
yeah.
I will totally pick a song from Hobgoblins.
Yes, for sure.
I love
Same.
Hobgoblins. This is for another podcast, but I love that movie and I legit love the soundtrack for that. But oh my God, Wasp. Yes. Wait, Wasp should have been in more horror movies.
It's weird they're
Like,
not. Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, we
And
haven't named one single Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack song yet, but there's a lot of this genre of music on every single Nightmare on Elm Street soundtrack. But but just is it as fun as Scream Until You Like It? No,
oh God,
no,
no.
it's
No
not.
offense to Dawkins or even
They were on my list.
Love Kills
Yeah,
by the Vinnie Vincent Invasion. Though that music video where we get that shot of Vinnie Vincent
yeah,
with the Freddy glove and he starts cracking up. I live for that.
yeah.
I love
It's
that.
really good. And I mean, Dream Warriors is a great song.
Mhm.
Would it fit on my spooky mix? No, so it's not gonna make it. But before I list off something that might be on your list, why don't you tell us your 10th and final pick?
My 10th and final pick, and this is where I'm going. This is definitely my deepest cut, and it's such a deep cut that I actually don't even know the name of the piece of music.
Ooh, okay.
But I can definitely tell you the film, of course, and the composer. And what I'm talking about is one of my favorite films of all time, and it's a film I always try to champion because I feel like not enough people know about it. And it's from 1967 from Argentina. Its original title is Placer Sangriento, but it was released in the States as Feast of Flesh, which is how
Okay.
I saw it. And then also in the way that only 70s grindhouse promotion could be quixotically called The Deadly Organ, which made it seem like it was about something that it's literally not.
Right.
It's a black and white moody film. There is some great jazz music in there too, but there's a particular piece of music that is very haunting, and it's almost this very haunting ethereal piece of music where whenever the titular villain who wears a weird mask, he seemingly puts certain women under a spell that you find out it's not actually a spell, it's partially like a combination of mind control and heroin.
Yeah. Classic.
Yeah, which I don't. Obviously, we don't recommend doing
No.
this in real life either. Don't date teenagers and don't mind control people
True.
with drugs. But anyways, the women when they start kind of being drawn to him, you hear this really great eerie music. It almost makes me think a little bit of the Dark Shadows theme, like the original Dark Shadows, which is so beautiful. But there's something just so the whole film is to me is very sad and mysterious, and this particular piece of music has those qualities. It emotionally sounds both sad, like a wail, like some kind of spirit wail, like, but you're still being lured. It's like you're being lured to some kind of doom. It's beautiful. And the composer is a guy named Victor Buquino. I'm probably butchering that. My apologies to our Spanish speaking listeners. I'm so sorry. I took French in high school and I still butchered that.
I did too.
But that Buquino was a very experienced man who was a pianist, composer, orchestra director, and interestingly enough, at least I think it is, has a background or had a background in tango and the music of tango. There's none of that elements. There's no tango in the soundtrack. But I do think this is such a beautiful film. I think it's just more people should see it. It's got beautiful cinematography. And especially when you think about what Argentina was going through politically, there was a lot of turmoil and upheaval in the 60s. It hits even harder. I just think it's a really special film. The director, Emilio Vieira, is probably better known for he made a film called The Curious Dr. Hump, which is strange.
Yeah.
So strange, but a lot of fun too. But this one, I think Feast of Flesh I think it's a gem, and I definitely recommend it. And I love the soundtrack for it. So that's my final pick.
Oh, I love that. I have not seen this. It's one of those titles that I was like, I'll get around to it, but it's not until somebody that I know and trust really puts it on my horizon that I go, all right, it's time. It's time to see it.
Yes.
So I'm going to check that out for sure. My 10th and final pick is something that we both know. I'm guessing we both love. It's from 1986. It's a Richard Band movie.
Oh my God.
These people did the score. They wrote 5 songs. Maggie's song from this group went on to be in Greg Araki's Living End, which I absolutely love. And Stevens' Dr. Caligari. I'm talking about the Fibonacci's. Am I saying that correct? From TerrorVision.
Oh my God. Yes, this almost made my list. Legit.
Yeah, this was almost number 1, just so we get it out there. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to hold on to it and see if we get there. And we have it right here at the end. I'm sure people know about TerrorVision, this wonderful, truly fantastic. Talk about a movie that's not perfect, but is so great because of its not perfectness. Like the alien not functioning, just all the stories of how they had just separate arms that they're trying to move around. And I mean, the cast is glorious,
legends.
Just beautifully shot, clearly on a soundstage. It's just, I love everything about this. It has that feel that people try to manufacture of like an 80s low budget film, but it does it with this heart. There's this reverence and passion for what they're doing that I think
Mhm.
is overlooked when people go, "That's a dumb, silly movie." I'm like, "That's not." I think that they're making something wild and outrageous, and there is humor at play, but I don't think anyone's dumb about what they're doing. I think they're all very aware of what they're creating, and it's that intent to make something this fun that I think should be celebrated.
Absolutely. Oh my God. I feel like you've somehow like you with that you've tapped into like some kind of really inspirational message that I love because I do think people sometimes get so lost with like everything has to be either perfect or it has to be serious, and it's like, first of all, God forbid you have some fun in this
Yeah,
life.
yeah, seriously.
No matter how long we stay in this realm, there's not ever nothing is guaranteed. So you might as well
Hmm.
make the most of it
Hmm.
and of your time. But also, like, God, I mean, what about heart? And how can you even say something? I mean, what I say is perfect is gonna be different from what another person says.
Sure.
And what you say is perfect. Well, obviously what you say is perfect, I'm probably gonna agree with because I think we pretty much have been simpatico
We have
on
similar tastes.
everything.
Yes.
But and of course we're right. But but it's like art is art,
Hmm.
creative is creative, and I think part of the reasons why a lot of us get pulled to cult movies and horror is that ability to take an imagination and just make it limitless.
Hmm.
And you can make it fun, or you can make it creepy, or you can do this or that. And that's part of the fun, honestly, tying it in with our theme to Halloween. When
Hmm.
you're a little kid, it's that, you're getting to kind of be on your own a little bit when you're trick-or-treating, and it's kind of spooky and it's fun, and you're excited about getting candy, and you're getting to pretend you're somebody else and wear costume. And as you get older, some of us still dress up. We get to have decor out, and you still feel that chill in the air. And there's just like there's so many different fun levels of fear,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of horror is you can explore all of them. And some of it's like very real tangible fear, like like with the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
You could have something where it's like the Casa Bonita of fear, like
Hmm.
Texas Chainsaw 2,
Hmm.
and so on and so on. And I love that. I mean if something's not for your taste, that's fine, but like don't denigrate it just because it's not your flavor. Like I'm not gonna like I wasn't the biggest fan of the book Dr. Zhivago, but it's well written.
Yeah.
It's just not for me. I'm not gonna say it's a shitty book. It's not a shitty book. It's
Right.
just not for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But yeah, TerraVision. Oh my God. What a great pick. I love that song. Of course, I'm gonna pop hard because you mentioned Dr.
Yep.
Caligari. And I love Maggie's role in that because she's
Yeah.
I can't remember what her patient's name is, but she's adorable in it. She's so great.
Hmm.
Um and it takes a special actor because Stephen and Jerry Stahl's like dialogue
Yeah.
is so it's you want to talk about something being its own thing. It's
Hmm.
that it's like it's very theatrical. It's got a snappy patter kind of to it too. It takes a really special person to be able to pull that off without it being for it to hit.
Yes.
Because it does hit on the page, but what hits on the page and what hits on screen can differ so wildly depending on the actor.
Yeah.
But yeah, oh, I love that pick. Also, John Grease. Oh my
Yeah.
God, our metalhead in the film would love so many of our picks.
Yes. It's so
Kiss the
true.
boot.
He's so good. I have talk about missaying names. I called him John Grise forever, and now I know how you say it.
It's
So
it's like how many times I was mispronounced Louis Buñuel for years, and
oh
on podcasts, a
yeah,
friend
I
of mine
still
was finally
do.
like took me aside and said, Harper, I probably just mispronounced it now. Whatever. At least we know who these people are and we can spell
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. I always approach everything as like I might not be right, but if it puts it on someone's radar or it encourages them to check something out, then job well done. It's like you said, I'm not perfect, but like intent I think matters, and that's what we're talking about in these films is like they put the intent into creating something that was this voice and this thing. Maybe they weren't trying to make it the scariest or whatever, that sometimes people are like, this wasn't a scary horror movie, 1 star, and you're
Mm.
like, that wasn't what they intended to do. But okay, whatever. I could talk
Right.
about this subject
Yeah.
forever. Well, there you go, people. There's over 20 songs from soundtracks to put you into the spooky feeling. Anything you wanted to last mention before we ended?
Oh God, now that you mentioned, now my brain is like locking up. I'm sure I will think of something. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Maybe we'll do a part two next
Yes,
year.
we
Yeah.
should. I do have one that wouldn't be a part of the part two, and that is American Werewolf in Paris from 1997 was the only movie I could find that had a Skinny Puppy song. They have Hard Set Head in on the soundtrack, but it is not spooky. It would not fit into the mix, but I tried to shoehorn this harder than anything into my 1 through 10 because I was just like, Skinny Puppy sampled so much horror stuff. I mean, Nivek Ogre goes on to be in horror movies. I was like, this has to work, and it just did not. But I just wanted to mention that at the end because it was honestly one of those things that I was forcing the most, and I kept replaying the song and being like, no, this is not right.
So that is so weird. There's not some like somebody that could have been like, how can we work in Warlock?
Yes. I mean, assimilate. There's so many different things that you could throw in that would have like a cool vibe, but no, there's not. But Heather, where can people find you and be up to date on all the wonderful things that you're doing?
Well, of course, we you were kind enough to mention earlier at the beginning. We have a website, mondoheather.com. But you can go to my linktree.com/mondoheather, and you can find my website, my Patreon, my social media, various sort of podcast appearances, certain releases I'm on, and all sort of other sundry efforts. So linktree.com/mondoheather.
Fantastic. And thank you for your time and for coming on to talk about more music and movies. It's always a pleasure to get to speak with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for having me. I will always do your show anytime you ask.
Yes.
So.
Awesome. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VHS, where when it comes to celebrating rad films and even radder friends, we're not done yet.
VHS.